I've been using Storyline since it first came out in 2012, and I really love Storyline because, when I got into e-learning, I started with Articulate Studio. And let me ask this: give me a green check mark or type something into chat. Has anyone or did anyone start their e-learning career by using Articulate Studio before they learned Storyline? Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, when I started in e-learning, I started with Articulate Studio, and Sherry, you've also done Captivate, very cool. And Studio is a really great tool. It's a PowerPoint conversion tool. But after about 2 years of using Studio, I started feeling like I was really ready for more. And at the time, I didn't want to learn Captivate, and so I thought my only option was to learn how to use Flash programming to create some really custom interactivity. And then Storyline came out, and I was so happy to see what you could do with Storyline because Storyline's a really powerful tool for creating really, really, really sharp interactivity without having to write a single line of code. And that's where Storyline really, really shines. And some of the things that you can do in Storyline, some of the most powerful time-saving features that you can do in Storyline are hidden in plain sight. And there are things that even for myself, there are things that I've learned how to do in Storyline, even in the past year, that I didn't even realize was there, even though I've been using Storyline for 3+ years since it originally came out. So there are some tips that I'm going to show you. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I never noticed that, or I didn't know what that did. And there's going to be things, obviously, that some of you are going to be like, yeah, I knew that. But trust me, I guarantee you'll walk away learning something you didn't know. So, Articulate Storyline tips, secrets, and time savers. You can feel free to download this handout, but of course I'll be referencing it as we go through. So my number one, customizing the quick access toolbars. This is a really simple one. I'm going to go through some simple interface tips, and then we'll get into some more true feature tips. But one of the things that I like to do when I'm using Storyline is I like to customize the quick access toolbar. And if you've never done this or you're not sure what the quick access toolbar is, it's this toolbar up here. And by default, Storyline has the save, undo, and redo buttons, but you can actually customize this quick access toolbar. You may not even realize it because unlike with PowerPoint or Microsoft Word, if you want to access and customize the quick access toolbar, you have to click on a drop down and you can customize it. And it's a little bit different in Storyline. You think you only have these three options, but you can actually add anything to the quick access toolbar, any of your ribbon options, by simply right-clicking on it. If you right-click on it, you can add an item to the quick access toolbar, such as adding a new slide, or I insert pictures a lot, so I can add that to the quick access toolbar. Anything on this ribbon, just about anything, you can right-click and add it to your quick access toolbar. So that's pretty cool. I love doing that. I don't even know if I can add entrance animations, exit animations. You can add those items right to the quick access toolbar just by right-clicking on it. So it's easy to assume you can't customize that because you don't see the drop down for customizing it here when you click on that drop down. Yeah, spell check. Spell check. You just mentioned that, Kimberly. That's one that I like to do a lot. I don't even know. Is it under home? Where's the spell check option? Right here. Yeah, adding that to the quick access toolbar. And of course, you can show it below the ribbon to have it a little bit closer to your workspace. So customizing quick access toolbar, very simple and easy. You can do that. Now, another thing people don't realize they can do for number two tip is use the quick access toolbar with keyboard shortcuts. So here we have, Storyline interface, and when you hit, I believe it's Alt, no, is it Control? There we go, Control. When you hit the Control key on your key bar, you'll notice you get a series of numbers here and letters all throughout your ribbon, and you can actually, when you hit Control, let me actually verify that. Is it Control? No, it's Alt. It is the Alt key. When you hit the Alt key on your keyboard, it brings you up numbers. So you can do something like hit number 5, and it automatically goes right into inserting a picture. So you just press Alt, brings up the numbers, and then you just hit one of the numbers. So let me do I'll do number 1, the save. And there it goes and saves it. So you can use Alt, and then it gives you those numbers, so you don't have to even touch your mouse if you don't want to. You notice that you also get these letters up here. So if I want to go straight into animations, I just hit A on my keyboard, and it takes me to the animations tab. So a quick little time saver if you like keyboard shortcuts. I'm really bad with keyboard shortcuts. I don't use them that often. Number 3, undocking panels. Now, in this handout, anything that has an asterisk next to it only works in Storyline 2. So be aware of that. If you happen to be working in Storyline 1, some of these tips don't work for you, but maybe it'll be motivation to get Storyline 2 if you don't have Storyline 2 yet. So number 3 is undock panels, and this is a new feature in Storyline 2 that is a really powerful feature. You know, when you're working in Storyline, let's say you're working on a slide like this, or I'll actually go to this slide here. You have a lot of items on the screen, and maybe you're working in your timeline, and you know, once you get a lot of items on your timeline, it can be hard to look at, you know, you want to see a big version of your screen, but you also want to be working in your timeline. One of the things you can do now in Storyline 2 is you can actually undock this panel. This little button down here is called the undock redock button. If I click on this, it undocks the timeline. And if you happen to be working with a second monitor like I do, I have 2 monitors, you can actually move this over to a second monitor, and you can actually, you know, pretend this is my second monitor. You can have that fill up the screen. So you can see a really large version of your slide side by side with a large version of your timeline. And of course, you can always redock it by clicking redock. So any panel that has this little button or this icon, you can do that with timeline, you can do it with the states panel, you can do it with the notes panel, the scenes panel, the triggers, slide layers panel. You can do that, and you can undock those panels and move them and reconfigure them however you want. Now, one thing to be aware of is you can't actually reconfigure the interface. Like I can't say put the timeline panel over here on the right hand side, but you can move them around on your screen. And one thing you can do is, you know, sometimes people undock all of these panels and they mess up their interface. You know, you have everything everywhere. Under the View tab, let me try to see if we can see the View tab here. There is a button to redock all windows, and it will reset the interface. So that is number 3, undocking panels, and it's only available in Storyline 2, but it's one of my favorite features. I use that all the time. Another new feature in Storyline 2 is auto recovery. So if you've ever worked in Storyline 1, you had to have encountered this where you've worked for a couple hours and then didn't even realize a couple hours went by and then lost everything that you worked on because you didn't hit save. Well, in Storyline 2 now has auto recovery, and this is not auto save. Let me be very clear. It's not auto save. It's auto recovery. And so what is auto recovery? So by default, every 10 minutes in the background, Storyline 2 saves your unsaved changes every 10 minutes. And if Storyline were to crash, which I can't duplicate that right now, but if it were to crash and you go and open up Storyline, it would bring up a window that asks you, do you want to recover your unsaved changes? And if you say yes, it will open it up and it will recover the changes. It's very similar to if you were to open up PowerPoint after it crashes, it asks you, do you want to, recover the unsaved presentation? Well, you can actually customize how often it's saving that data, because remember, it's doing it every 10 minutes in the background. So if you happen to crash and that 10-minute threshold has not been met, all that work you've done for 9 minutes or 9 minutes and 59 seconds will not have been saved. But you can customize that. Under the File menu, under Storyline Options, you have Save Auto Recovery Information. And you can actually turn that off if you want to. I don't know why you would, but you can. And you can change how often it's saving it. Now be aware, you might think, oh, well, we'll have it save every 1 minute. Well, be aware that, every minute, it's going to take some processing power to do that. And so it might slow down your computer if you do it more often. But you can adjust that. Maybe every 5 minutes or 3 minutes is more practical. But you can actually do that. So auto recovery, it's a really great feature in Storyline. In Storyline 2, to be clear. Number 5, adding cue points to the timeline. So if you were like me, when I started out using Storyline right at the very beginning, and if I had a slide like this where I had to sync up some animation, the way I would go about it is I would open up my timeline here, and I would hit play, and of course wait the 6 seconds for it to start playing. Let's see if it'll work here. There we go. Wait 6 seconds.
According to the Federal Trade Commission.
Okay, and then I would pause, and then I would move my animation, the thing that would animate. I think this one's going to animate as well. And then I'd hit play again, and this was my process for syncing animation. I'd have to do this over and over again. Hit play, and hit pause.
Identity theft was the...
Okay, and pause it again for my next animation and move that across, and then hit play again, and wait the 6 seconds before it'll play.
The #1 fraud complaint during the calendar year 2008 and cost Americans nearly $1.52 billion in 2012. Even more startling, a
Okay, and then pause it again and move this next one down. Let me know, is that how you used to sync animations, or is that how you currently sync animations? I'm curious. Did anyone ever sync animations like that? That's what you do now, yeah. That can be really, really time consuming when you're syncing animations. And there's a couple features that you can take advantage of in Storyline to help you save some time. The first one is adding cue points. And cue points are these nifty little icons that you can add to your timeline, anywhere on your timeline, as a visual indicator to go, hey, Tim or Donna or whoever it is, I need to have a cue point here to tell me I want something to happen here. Maybe you want something to animate in, animate out, who knows. But you can add cue points at any time by right-clicking, and it says create cue point at playhead. And it's this little indicator, and you can move that wherever you want. And you can use that as a visual indicator. So rather than, you can hit play, pause, and add the cue point. So let me undo some of the things that I've done here. Go back here and undo. Let me undo, there we go. So you can still hit play, and this is a problem with the cue points. Even though you can add the cue points, you'd still have to hit play and wait the 6 seconds.
According to the Federal Trade,
and then pause and right-click and add the cue point. So that's not really very time-saving. But there's actually an easier way that you can go about syncing up your animations by using cue points. And this is a secret little keyboard shortcut that many people aren't aware of. It would be really great if I could watch my slide from beginning to end and add cue points as it was playing for the visual indicators for when I want things to come in and out. And the way you do that is with the space key. Many people don't realize, or not space key, the C key. C as in cat on your keyboard. So as I'm going to play this slide from beginning to end, I'm actually going to hit the C key on my keyboard, and it's a shortcut key which will add a cue point when I hit it. So watch me as I do this. I'm going to hit play and let my slide play from beginning to end, and I'm going to add cue points as it's playing. Watch this.
according to the Federal Trade
There's
Commission,
C key.
identity theft was the #1
C key.
fraud complaint during the calendar year 2008 and cost Americans nearly $1.52 billion in 2012. Even more startling, a 2009 study released by...
So you can hit that C key while you're playing it to add those cue points. And now I have a visual indicator on my timeline where I can go, okay, this needs to go down to here to cue point 1. Move that there. This one goes to cue point 1 as well. This one goes to cue point 2. And this one goes down to cue point 3. Now that's still a pretty manual process. You still have to move it down. And there's actually one other thing you can do. It actually makes things a little bit easier when you're adding these or syncing these to the cue points. So let me undo what I just did. Rather than manually moving it, you can right click on these items and align to cue point, and it'll jump down to cue point. Oh, it should have jumped down to cue point 1. I don't know if it works with groups. Let me try it up here. Right click, align to cue point 2. It jumps right down there. Right click, align to cue point 3. So that's an easier way of syncing animations. You listen to the slide, you hit the C key as it's playing, and then you right click and align to cue point. Very simple way of syncing up animations versus letting play, hitting pause, dragging it down, hoping you got it right. You can do it now using the C key and then aligning to cue point. So that was number 5 and number 6. Very cool. Number 7, turn off snap to grid. This is a very simple little interface feature. One of my biggest pet peeves in Storyline when I was first using it, you have an object here, maybe you want to adjust its position, and you start using your arrow keys, and you notice it jumps in these like large increments. Well, what's actually happening in Storyline is by default, when you move items with your keyboard, it is by default moving those items in increments of 8 pixels in any given direction. And you can actually turn this off or customize it however you want. And the way that you do that, I have to remind myself here by looking at my document, is you right-click anywhere on the slide, and you have this grid and guideline options here. And you can actually turn off snapping objects to the grid. And if I turn this off and hit OK, now I can move items in 1 pixel increments, which is really cool. It's not going to move items in those 8 pixel increments. Now if I go back to grids and guidelines, you can actually leave that on, but you can actually customize the spacing. I can make it move by default. Let's see if I can enter one here in 1 pixel increments. So now it's only moving in small increments. Now, one other thing you can do, maybe you don't want to turn that off. Maybe you want to leave it at 8 pixel increments. And you don't want to turn off Snap to Grid. There's actually a little keyboard shortcut you can use when using this. If you ever do this and you hold the control key while moving it, it overrides that feature. So here I am moving it without holding the control key, and then if I press down the control key, it overrides it and moves it in 1 pixel increments. So that's Snap to Grid and turning it off. That's a nice feature. I hate having that on sometimes. Number 8, change picture. This is one of the incredibly simple feature in Storyline. It's a feature that's available in PowerPoint. However, I think it's really, really powerful. It's a very, very powerful feature in Storyline because it has some additional functionality that many people don't realize. So it's very common. You might be working on a project. You do a review of your e-learning course with your subject matter expert or your business partner, and they come back and they say, hey, we love the way this looks, but this green leaf doesn't really match the look and feel of our course. And so, if we want to replace this leaf, I could delete it and go to Insert and find a new picture and insert a new picture. But can anyone tell me, just type into chat, what would be wrong with me doing that? By deleting the picture and inserting a new one. What risks am I running by doing that? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Yeah, Matt says you'll lose the triggers. You'll lose anything associated with that image. You have to reformat that image. Yeah, exactly. Anything associated with that image, any states, any animations, we have an animation, any timing, any triggers, anything associated with that object or image would be lost. So what I like to do is rather than deleting it, I like to right click and click change picture. And if I do that, I can go find a new picture. I have one somewhere here. I don't know. I don't know where it's at, but I'll just pick a random one. I'll pick this one here. And it changes out the picture. Now, we'll pretend this is a leaf like we want it to look. But what this does is it replaces the picture, but it keeps the timing, it keeps the triggers, it keeps the animations, it keeps any states that were associated with it, and it just swaps out the image. But it keeps any programming or logic that I've applied to that image. So swapping out the picture is a nifty little feature rather than deleting it. Number 9, copying formatting from one object to another. Another cool feature that came from PowerPoint that's been brought over to Studio is something called the Format Painter. And many people don't use the Format Painter because they've never gone to experiment. What does the Format Painter mean? So the Format Painter can be found on the Home tab underneath the Copy and Cut options here. It's Format Painter. And the Format Painter allows you to simply copy the formatting from one object to another. But Storyline takes it to the next level. There's some additional features that are hidden in it. So let's say we have these buttons here, and I want the banana, cherry, and strawberry button to look like my green pineapple button. Of course, I could format this manually, but that would take some time. So rather than doing that, I'll select the pineapple button, click the Format Painter, and then go over here and click banana, and it applies the formatting. Now, what's cool about this is you'll notice that it did not replace the text, it did not say pineapple, it just changed the formatting. So it changed the fill, it changed the outline, it changed the text color, it did all of that. Now, one other thing you can do with the Format Painter is if you double click on it, it'll keep it on and you can go apply it, the formatting to multiple objects. Now, one thing that I really, really love about the Format Painter, and this is something that many people don't realize in Storyline, is in addition to applying the formatting, copying and pasting the formatting from one object to another, it also copies any states I had associated with that object. So if I created some states with that object, it copies those states over as well. So if you have created states, it does that as well. So what you can do with that is you can create one button, create all your custom states, whether it's hover states, selected states, whatever, and then go and apply the Format Painter to the other objects, and it will bring those states over. So that can be an incredibly time-saving feature. Now, the Format Painter works with all other types of objects. It works with pictures as well. So I can turn on the Format Painter and apply formatting to pictures as well. So that's pretty cool. All right, so that was number 9, copying formatting from one object to another. Number 10, hide base layer objects on slide layers. So here's a common situation for those of you who are new to Articulate or who have experienced this before. Here we have a basic slide here. Let me preview this. I'm going to preview this slide so you can see what the issue is. All right, so we have this menu slide with these 3 offices, and you notice if I click on one of them, we can see this directional text in the background. It still says click to learn more. And we don't want to show that. We don't want the user to see that when they reveal this layer. We can even see those buttons in the background. We don't want to see those. And so if you were like me, when I first started out in Storyline, and let me know if you've done this before, or if you still do this. If you were like me, I was thinking, how can I hide this if I'm on one of these layers? So if you were like me, you think, oh, I'll be really sneaky and insert, I'll just put a big old square over this and just cover it up, and I'll make it look white with no outline and send it to the back to cover that up, But the problem with that is, of course, you can still see the white box. The background isn't white, so you see the white box, and we can also still see part of that directional text there. So that's not going to work for us, but I've done that in the past, and it's worked in some situations. You might still be doing something like that. Another thing you can do is you can also go into the properties of the layer. There is an option to hide objects on base layer. Try that and hit OK. Well, it worked. It hid my directional text, but it also hid everything on my base layer. It hid the title. There's a little menu button down here. It hid all of those items. So that doesn't work here. We don't want to hide all of the objects on the base layer. So one of the things you can do in Storyline when you are on a slide layer and you want to hide individual objects on your base layer is you can come down to your timeline here, go to the timeline on a slide layer, and you get this option for base layer objects. Base layer objects. And if you click to expand that, you can actually see all of the objects that are on your base layer and hide them individually when you're on a slide layer. So we don't want the directional text, I can hide that. I can also hide the 3 buttons on the screen. Now the thing about this is it's on a slide layer per slide layer basis. So you have to go and do that on all of your individual slide layers if you want to hide those individual objects that are on your base layer. So now, with those hidden, if I preview my slide, here's our menu. Click on a button, and now we don't have that issue anymore. The directional text is hidden, and those menu buttons are hidden. Easy way of hiding individual objects on a base layer without having to do weird, funky stuff like drawing a big white box or having to hide all of the objects. So that was number 10, hiding base layer objects and slide layers. Number 11, creating a button set. This is a feature many people don't realize because I think the button sets are kind of hidden in Storyline, but let me show you the issue here. Let me preview the slide. We have this slide here. We'll pretend this is a menu slide, and it says select a character and click to continue. So maybe we're doing a course that has some personalization options. Now, they all have hover states. They have a selected state. But one of the problems is I can select more than one, and look, all 3 of them are selected. That's how selected states work. It's like a toggle on or off. Now, the problem here is I only want the user to be only able to select one character at a time. I don't, if they click this guy here, but then they go and click the female, I want him to turn to be deselected, and vice versa for all of them. I don't want them to be able to click more than one. So, if you were like me when I first started using Storyline, the way I would approach this is I would have a trigger that said when the user clicks this, make it selected, but turn character 2 and character 3 deselected. But if the character, if the user selects character 2, turn character 1 and character 3 to deselected. And the same thing for character 3. If the user selects character 3, turn character 1 and character 2 to deselected or normal. That's a very, very manual process of doing that. It requires a bunch of triggers. And there's actually an easier way of doing that in Storyline, and it's called a button set. So to create a button set, I'll explain how to do it, and then I'll explain really what it is. To create a button set, you can select whatever items, these 3 characters, you want to be part of a button set. And if you right-click while all 3 of them are selected, you have this option right here for button set. It's kind of hidden. You may not have noticed it, or you may have noticed it and go, I don't know what that is. And if you turn it into a button set, it's going to put some programming. It doesn't change anything on the slide, but it puts some programming in the background that turns these 3 characters into a button set. And a button set makes them act like a radio button. And with radio buttons, you can only ever have one radio button selected at any time. So now if I preview this, because those 3 characters are part of a button set, it will only allow me to have one of them selected at any given time because they're part of a button set. So that's pretty cool. You can use that so that you don't have to create those extra triggers to create that effect. And you can use that with all sorts of different options, or you can use it with check marks or or radio buttons or whatnot. So that's using a button set. Definitely check that out. Number 12, this is a simple feature hidden in plain sight. Many people don't realize it. You can actually take screenshots directly within Storyline. Now, I happen to use a tool like Snagit. That's my preferred tool. But if you don't have Snagit or another screenshot tool, you can actually use Storyline to take screenshots. And this feature is actually also available in PowerPoint and Microsoft Word and all the Microsoft projects or products. But you can use Storyline to take screenshots. So under the Insert tab, you may not have just ever taken the time to notice this, but there's a screenshot option here. And if you click on this, you have a couple options. You can take a screenshot of any windows that are currently open on your computer. So if I want a screenshot of this document, I click on this, and it quickly adds a screenshot directly into my course, and I can, scale it and do whatever I want with it. That's pretty cool. But you can also do something called a screen clipping. And if I click this, Storyline goes into the background, and I can actually take a screen clipping of something specific, and when I let go, that screen clipping comes right back into Storyline, and I can put that wherever I want. So it's under Insert Screenshot. Many people don't realize it's there. It's kind of hidden in plain sight. So you can take screenshots directly within Storyline and not have to use an outside tool. Okay, number 13, another simple time-saving feature. Make multiple objects the same height, width, or size. So again, if you're like me in Storyline, you have 3 buttons here. You want them to be the same size. You might have been like me, and obviously you can scale it to make it big size, the same size. But you might have been like me, and you line it up on top of one another like this, and then try to scale it so it's the same width and same height, and then move it down here and do the same thing there, and then do the same thing to this button. You put it up here. Oops. And then, of course, it's behind it, so then you have to go right-click and send it back. And then try to select it. Of course, it's hard to click on the edge of it. And then scale it. If you're like me, that's how you scale things to be the same size. So let me undo this. I'll show you an easier way of doing this. Okay. So undo everything I've done. Okay. So you have 3 objects. You want them to be the same width, same size, same height. You can select the objects. And under the option for... Where is it? Is it under rotate? No, it's under align. Where is it? I think it's under the home and under arrange. Yes, under arrange, under the home tab, you have this option for size. And you can actually make multiple objects the same width, same height, same size, grow to largest, shrink to largest. So maybe I want it to grow to the largest. Look at that. They're all the same size. I don't have to manually spend some time doing that. And it works with all sorts of objects. You can do that with pictures as well. So I can select, these 3 pictures. Let's get to them. Oops. 3 pictures. Of course, Storyline's being slow here. Give it a moment. 3 pictures here. I can select them. Go to arrange and size, and maybe we want to shrink to the smallest. Give it a moment. Now they're all the same size. Of course, you can use your align tools. Maybe you want to align them to the middle. Do whatever. So Matt says mind equals blown. Yeah, that's a really cool feature that's there. And rather than having to manually do that, you can use that under arrange. You have that size drop down. And there's a whole bunch of things there. If you've never used the align or distribute tools, it's kind of the same thing. Once you discover those distribute tools, those are kind of amazing. So size is there. You can do that. Any questions about that? I see a lot of you guys are typing. Yeah, I struggle with sizing as well, Kimberly. Very cool. So let's make objects multiple same height, width, or size. Number 14, copy animations from one object to another. This isn't really a secret. It's actually a new feature in Storyline 2. Just like I showed you with the Format Painter earlier, where you can copy formatting from one object to another, you can actually do the same thing with animations. So here we have on this piece of paper, if I go to my Animations tab, I have a fly-in animation. And rather than trying to go back and manually apply this, if I want to apply the same animation to the other options, I have this new feature called the Animation Painter. Turn that on. I'll double click to keep it on, and I can apply those animations as well to those other objects. So Animation Painter, really simple feature. And the cool thing is that they also work with motion paths. So motion paths are new in Storyline 2. So I have this motion path with this document moving to this file here. So I can actually click on this, select my Animation Painter, and apply it right there. Now, of course, it applies the exact same motion path. So you actually have to still change its end position. But, now we have two motion paths. I didn't have to spend that time manually adding it, and they both go just like they should. So Animation Painter works with both regular animations and motion paths. Okay, number 15, apply transitions to slide layers. Again, this is more of a new feature in Storyline 2. We're back to this slide here where we have these menu slides, and I can simply, obviously, manually animate these items, but there's also, you can now apply transitions not only to slides, but also slide layers. So if I want this slide layer to do this cover animation, I can now preview it, and you'll see when I go to this layer, it does the cover animation. So transitions also can be used with slide layers. So all of these transitions work with slide layers as well, not just slides for transitioning from one slide to another. Number 16, link scenes and slides in Story View. This is another simple feature that you may not have noticed. It might be time saving, it might not be for you. But if I come back here to Story View, one thing to know about Storyline is although Storyline assumes slide-to-slide navigation, Storyline does not assume scene-to-scene navigation. So we have multiple scenes here, and if I want them to be linked up, your way of doing that might be coming down to the very last slide here, and you just edit this trigger, rather than next slide, jump to a different scene. Well, one of the things you can actually do is you can link up scenes and slides here in Story View. So for example, maybe I want this scene to link to this scene. This little link icon down here. If you click on this, you get some options. And you can link to a slide, do a new slide, but you can link to scene. And we can link this to scene 2. And it creates that link. And what that's actually doing is it's just editing this jump to next slide trigger. It changes that next button trigger to jump to the next scene. You can go and link this to scene 3. So easy way to link scenes together is just using that little link icon at the bottom of the scene. If you've ever wondered what that is, that's what that does. I didn't know that until like a couple months ago, which is really sad, but you learn new things every day, right? Okay. Number 17, make the seek bar read only. Okay. Now, again, another new feature in Storyline 2, but I think it's a very cool, powerful feature. So let's say you have a slide like this. Let me preview the slide.
According to the Federal Trade Commission,
okay. So you have a slide like this with some audio. Now, of course, in Storyline, if you have the seek bar on in Storyline 1, the user can always click and go straight to the end. Say you have a conditional trigger that says you can't jump to the next slide until the user gets to the end of the timeline. Well, of course, learners realize that they can just click to the end of the timeline to get to it. Now, I wish you could do that with like YouTube ads, right? When you have to watch an ad on a YouTube video, I wish you could just click to the end. But you have the seek bar, and the drawback of having this seek bar is the user can skip to the end. Well, one of the things you can do in Storyline 2 is you can keep your seek bar, but you can make it read only. What do I mean by that? Well, let me show you. In your player options, in Storyline 2 only, you have an option for the seek bar. Of course, you can turn it on or off, but if you don't want the user to be able to click on the seek bar, the only option in Storyline 2 or Storyline 1 was to turn it off. Well, in Storyline 2, you can actually make the seek bar read only. This will keep the seek bar, but it will not allow the user to click on it and jump around. Let me show you what that looks like now.
According to the Federal Trade Commission,
turn down the audio here. I am trying to click, but it's not letting me click. So, why would you want that? Maybe you want the seek bar to still be that visual indicator of time for how much time is left on the slide, but you don't want the user to be able to click on it. Yes, you can still pause. That still works, absolutely. It's just a visual indicator of time. So I can't click to jump and skip everything. So it just makes it read only. But you can still pause, you can hit play. All that stuff still works. Making the seek bar read only. Cool feature. Number 18. Automate common phrases with autocorrect. This is a simple little thing that I do sometimes to help me save some time. Let's say one of the things I happen to type a lot. I insert a text box and I happen to type a lot. Click the next button to continue. I might type that a lot. Well, what if there's common things that I type a lot that I don't want to have to manually type? I can do that using autocorrect. So what I can do is under File, Storyline Options, you have these autocorrect options. And autocorrect options do little things. Like if you type ABD, it'll replace it with AND because it assumes that's what you meant to type. But you can actually create your own. So I can do replace C and B with click the next button to continue, which you see I've already done, but I could say click the next button to continue. And it's already in there, so I'll hit OK. And so now if I type in C and B and hit space, it replaces it with click the next button to continue. So you can create those custom autocorrects and have little codes that automatically fill in certain things. So you can do that in Word, you can do that in PowerPoint, you can probably do that in your email program as well. So you can have a nice little code that'll replace with a signature or something like that. Now what's really fun is like on April Fool's Day, you go into your coworker's computer and replace the word the with a naughty word. That's kind of fun thing to do. So autocorrect. Now I'm going to go through some keyboard shortcuts, and then I have some additional extra bonus tips that I like to show as well that I've discovered over the years. So keyboard shortcuts, some really quick ones. Let me just fire through these really quickly. So duplicate an object. A keyboard shortcut to duplicate an object. If you hold Control while selecting and dragging an object, it'll automatically duplicate it. So I'm holding Control on my keyboard. I'm going to click and drag, and it duplicates the object. So rather than having to right-click, copy, and paste, you just hold Control, click and drag, and it duplicates objects. You see I had two of them selected, so we'll just do this one. Control, click and drag, it duplicates it. Very, very simple feature. That's not only Storyline 2, that's also in PowerPoint. And Donna just mentioned Control D works as well. Absolutely. I completely agree. So if you do Control D, just duplicates it. So saves you some time versus copying and pasting. Okay, function. Open the Format Shape dialog box. So one of the things I do a lot is I right-click in Format Shape. That's not too hard, but you can also select the object, and if you just hold Control and hit Enter, it brings that up, the Format Shape. So Control and Enter will bring that up. Same thing works with Size and Position. So rather than right-clicking and do Size and Position, you can just do Control-Shift and Enter, and you get the Size and Position window if you wanted to do some options there. Simple keyboard shortcut. Grouping objects, obviously, you might select two objects, right-click and group, and then group the object. One thing I do a lot is I just do Control-G. Control-G groups those objects. Simple feature. And then I believe Control-Shift-G ungroups them. So Control-Shift-G ungroups them. I don't think that's mentioned here. Undo, of course, you might do something. This is one that I use more often than I'd like to admit. Rather than hitting undo, you can just do Control-Z. Oops, let me do that. Control-Z, undo. I use that all the time. What's this one? Oh, here's a really cool one. So you can actually zoom in and out of the screen. You have these options down here to zoom out, zoom in. That's great. But you can actually, if you hold Control and use your mouse wheel, and why is it not working? Oh, because I have my scene selected here. You can zoom in and out. Control and the mouse wheel will have things zooming in and out. Pretty cool little feature. I showed this earlier, moving objects by 1 pixel. So if you do Control and, again, it moves by 8 pixels by default, but Control, it'll move it by 1 pixel. So you can do some fine-tuned movements there. And then if you do Control-Shift with the arrow, it'll resize the object by 1 pixel. So if I hold Control-Shift, and start using my key buttons, you'll see it's resizing the object by 1 pixel. Pretty cool. Okay, so those are keyboard shortcuts. Let me show you some bonus tips that I've thrown into my project. Let me go back to my story view here. So this is my formal presentation, but I have some bonus tips I like to show. Timeline jump. This is a cool feature. And it's not even really technically a feature in Storyline. It's kind of a, I don't know if it's a hack or what you want to call it, but this is a very common issue that you might run into Storyline. You have a slide here with 7 seconds of audio, right? But for some reason, absolutely makes no sense. All of a sudden, you notice your slide is like 100 seconds long. Has anyone ever experienced that, where the slide just randomly goes to like 100 seconds, right? Yeah, that's so annoying. All the time, yeah. So the way to fix that, you might go, okay, I have to click this and drag, and you have to wait until it gets to the end. That takes forever. I hate doing this, especially when you're doing it on multiple slides. So there's actually a quicker way of doing that. Let me show you how. If you have a slide like this that's really long and you need to drag it to the end, if you start dragging, while it's dragging, if you hit the left key on your keyboard, it snaps it all the way to the back. Let me show that one more time. Let me undo. While you're dragging the timeline back, all I'm doing is I'm hitting the left arrow key on my keyboard, and it snaps it all the way back to the beginning. So you don't have to wait the 100 seconds to get all the way back to the beginning. So that's a really, really, really cool little time-saving feature. Again, I'll show that one more time. While I'm dragging it, hit the left key, and it snaps it all the way back to the beginning. Very cool feature. It's not even really a feature. I don't know. Somebody discovered it on the forums. I think it was Phil Mayer who discovered it on the Articulate forums to do that. So if that's an issue for you, definitely use that. While you're dragging, hit the left key. Simple feature. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe this is just me, but I didn't know this for a year into using Storyline, and you might have experienced the same thing. Sometimes I feel stupid admitting that. But one of the things that you may not know is checkboxes secretly have text boxes built into them. So if you were like me, I'd create a text box, and if I wanted some text here, I'd go insert a text box, right next to it, and say, whatever the option is. Well, stupid me, I didn't know, and maybe you as well, text boxes or checkboxes secretly have text boxes built into them. So if you just start typing, it adds text to it. I had no idea of that. So if you didn't know that either, now you know. And that's my presentation. Those are my shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts, or all my time savers and tips and tricks. Any questions? Anything that you have questions about with Storyline? We still have about 15 minutes left, so if there's anything specific you want to ask or see, let me know. And of course, this PDF, you can download that from the Files pod in Adobe Connect. And I hope you all walked away learning at least one new thing, if not more than one. Donna asks, I was wondering if there's a way to merge a graphic into the background. The only way that, if I'm following you, the only way you could say, you want a graphic, this to be in the background, the only way you could do that is by putting it on your master slide. If you put it on your master slide, you see I have all of these objects on my master slide, that would have it be in the background. So you'd have to do that using your master slides. It would be in the background. But I don't know if there's no keyboard shortcut to just put something in the background. Of course, you could always, if you don't want to put it on the master slide, you can say this is my background graphic. I can just lock it on my timeline and it won't get moved. Matt says, is there a way of copying and pasting text to keep the original formatting? Yeah, copying and pasting text in Storyline can be wonky, right? Let me come to a blank slide. Let me just come to this slide here. Whenever you copy and paste text, let me just copy this out. You tend to get three options for pasting. You have these three options when you right click. One says use the destination theme. So whatever font themes and formatting you have set up, it will use that. So if I click this, it keeps it like that. But it doesn't keep that formatting that you had there. I don't get that. Right click, what's this? Keep source formatting. It should paste it just like this. Let's see. Yeah, it does. It pastes it just like that. If I right click and then do paste as keep text only, it just does plain old text. So you have those options to keep the original formatting. It works really good when you're doing that within Storyline, but it struggles if you're copying and pasting, especially from Microsoft Word. Even if you right click and do keep source formatting, I've had issues where it doesn't keep the italics or bolding, and I haven't figured out an easy way of getting around that, unfortunately. But you do have those options if you didn't notice those were there before. Any other questions before we close up for today? Okay. Well, good. I hope you guys walked away learning something new. And of course, and Sherry, I see you're typing. Kimberly, multiple people are typing. Very cool. No, thank you guys. I appreciate you coming. Have a great weekend. And of course, make sure, check out elearninguncovered.com for our other webinars, workshops, quick courses, all the cool stuff out there.
Hey, did you like that video? Make sure to check out some of our other great content at elearninguncovered.com.